Hey, ideators and entrepreneurs, CUNY Startups here. Welcome to CUNY and Beyond, the podcast dedicated to helping inspiring entrepreneurs through storytelling. We're excited to dive into the entrepreneurial endeavors of CUNY students, alum, and bonus entrepreneurs who are willing to share their valuable insights with you. Join us for today's show.
Hello, everyone. My name is Adia Johnson. I am the host today, and today I'm joined by a former CUNY Startups alum who was part of CUNY Clash in 2022, Blake Stoner. We're going to hear more about his business today. Thank you for joining me, Blake.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So if you can give us a little insight into how you joined CUNY. I know that you are, or you were at the School of Journalism. How did you make your way into the journalism field? If you were doing anything before then, and how's that journey been?
Yeah. Long story short, when it comes to journalism, I had more of a community organizing background. I'm someone who been working in communities my whole life. My dad's a city councilman. My grandfather was one of the freedom riders in the civil rights movement. So I just grew up in that kind of household. When Ferguson happened, episode of police brutality, I was one of the people who went out there and just from doing work, doing voter registration out there door to door, it opened my eyes to stories that weren't being represented properly. That was kind of like my catalyst of why I wanted to get into the storytelling field a little bit, just because there was gaps in representation and wasn't enough infrastructure to fill in those gaps. That's why we started Vngle, and we've been building that infrastructure for a few years now. And as far as CUNY goes, we were supporting research and technology development at CUNY, and then eventually I was honored to be selected as a Knight Fellow at the Newmark School of Journalism for their executive program for news innovation and leadership, and spent a year working with global news executives from different countries to just refine my understanding of how the media world works, while also refining my leadership of Vngle. So that is my progression and how I became an actual student of CUNY. But then we continued on hosting a lot of different student development opportunities, from internships to fellowships to hackathons across schools. Initially, it was John Jay. It was our first school that we really were working with. But since then, we've also launched a whole think tank called the Institute for Nonpartisan Innovation, which is all in collaboration between Vngle and CUNY, to create new spaces and new opportunities for students and faculty to come together to address key civic issues with real-time information, real-time insights. And that has primarily built a relationship with John Jay, but also with City Tech. We're now currently running our second fellowship through City Tech.
With Vngle, you've done fellowships, student internships, hackathons. What is Vngle? So for someone who doesn't know, what is the mission? How did it start? What is your business? What is the goal of it?
Yeah. So Vngle actually recently had a repositioning. Vngle, we describe Vngle right now as the Civic Insights Company. And our whole focus is to help decision makers better connect with communities and get more transparency and more real-time information and insights from communities through basically empowering community, local experts and local creators across these communities to help be hyper-local, grassroots-powered reporters across different areas that may or may not get that well represented. Basically become a medium for real-time information through working with members of the community to tap in their understanding of local issues and to report real-time things, to help decision makers have, make sure they don't have any blind spots, and also just have a ever-growing stream of real-time civic insight and civic data to make better decisions in the work they do. So
my main question would be then, how do you manage kind of working with all these different community partners in a sense? What goes into that on a daily basis? What does that look like?
It's this is complicated a little bit, but it's largely around finding the right people across different communities, making sure they get the right training, because no one can work with us without having the basic training on how to report locally in their area. make sure they're leveraging our technology. So we have a reporter app that's powered by patented technology built at CUNY. That's basically content forensics software that is able to track the who, what, when, and where around exactly when a photo or video is captured. So that helps us a little bit with organizing and keeping track of what is called the provenance of information as it's being created. I mean, that's especially important today with, so much misinformation and fake information and so much generative AI. You have to be able to pinpoint the exact origin of certain information. And then, when it comes to like our partnerships and stuff, we have built weekly cadences with them to understand what their needs are, what kind of communities they're seeking to connect with, just overall creating a fluid system to help them better connect with these communities while helping mobilize these communities to uncover more information in real time.
So you kind of touched on generative AI. So I know AI has touched on a few industries, and I know it's definitely touched on journalism. You kind of like touched on the fact that it could be a challenge in a way, of course, like with fake news in a sense.
Right.
How has it really affected your industry in the negative and in the positive?
Yeah, so in the negative, obviously, it's you have to be vigilant in combating misinformation, especially when someone can generate a piece of content that looks indistinguishable from reality. You have to be able to really have some guardrails in place, which is hard, especially for a lot of organizations that are smaller and or maybe not be as prominent to distinguish themselves in a world of ever-growing noise. So it's very hard. There's some people trying to build tools and stuff like us to kind of get around that, but for a lot of organizations, it's hard, especially traditional media, kind of just like leaning on people to send them content or even, just when it comes to the generation of article, it's hard to, how do you distinguish between a traditional trained journalist writing an article and someone who just generated an article? You can't, unless you have systems in place to kind of show the transparency in that. So that's why we really believe in using public ledger systems and just be able to create more transparency in the origination of content. But the good side is, outside of the generation and tracking information, AI brings a lot of automation that also can help small teams, and really teams of all sizes, obviously, but definitely small teams that, normally couldn't do that much by themselves, but with implementation of a few AI tools can do a lot more with a very limited budget or restraints. Even on our end, we have been building a lot of in-house AI tools to help automate the collection of insights across all the data and photos and videos that we capture across our Vngle network, to really just help decision makers make clearer decisions on and have a better grasp of what's going on across different communities and different regions, which is kind of hard to do manually, but with the assist of certain AI tools, you can do it pretty seamlessly.
And Remy and I at CUNY Startups, it's just me and him. Originally, he's been an advocate for AI, and I was like, I don't want to try it. I want to use it. I don't even have an account to log into anything, but I have been tampering with it a bit just to see, and it has helped streamline some of my work ethics. But yeah, I can see the disadvantages for sure. Thinking of CUNY Startups, you were part of CUNY Clash, and you were the only student who was from the School of Journalism. I remember reaching out to someone in career services at your school to kind of promote on your campus, and you were like, yeah, the students here, they are so overwhelmed in a sense. They have so much to do in terms of like their curriculum. They don't have time for anything else, so we can't really promote here. So the fact that you applied the same semester, how did you find out about it? How did you make time for it? Like, tell me about that.
Well, as an executive student, I have a whole different kind of schedule than the traditional Newmark journalism student. So I'm obviously already running my own operation. I'm at the CUNY Journalism School to bone up on ways to run it better. And but to answer your question, being someone who's grown this operation through different academic institutions. Like I started my senior year at Morehouse College, and then went to Columbia before I got involved with CUNY. I know, different universities have different things in place to support entrepreneurs. So I was just asking around the journalism school, like, hey, does CUNY have anything for entrepreneurs or for startups, anything? And at first, it was slow to find anything, but then eventually I found CUNY Startups. And then I was like, oh, you know what? I think I'll just apply and see what more support, I can get, or at the very least awareness for the work that we're doing. And that's what I did.
Amazing. And what do you say has been one of those rewarding experiences so far of owning Vngle?
That's a great question. I think it's two things that come to mind. One is like the creative freedom that comes with it, to be able to really mold an impactful operation. I set out to not create a normal company. We very much see that Vngle is more of a social enterprise, like focus more on, obviously you have to generate a profit, but generating equally as much impact and helping to, uncover key things that a lot of people across America don't understand or just don't see because there's no infrastructure to cover or to capture. So that impact is really, really big and really meaningful. And because of that impact, people who make impactful decisions are really drawn to Vngle. People whose job is rooted in serving communities or better understanding communities, they are more and more drawn to Vngle, especially public leaders and nonprofits and even universities, that anyone that has a vetted interest in knowing what's going on in communities. So because of that, we get to meet a lot of mayors and city council members and university deans and nonprofit executives and just all kinds of great organizations, because they realize that, over these last years, we've built something that no one else can do. That's been super rewarding because startups are very hard. The amount of sacrifice you have to make is crazy. But when you get to the other side and you start to see your work bear fruit, and able to resonate with the world, that's why you get into it. Going back to the creative freedom part, being able to create new things and new opportunities, for future generations of impact makers and technologists and entrepreneurs. That's another thing that we really, value at Vngle. And me and our chief of staff, Jaime, we really talk about that a lot. We talk about how, this is bigger than us. Obviously, our impact is bigger than us, but then even the pathways we make for people who are just starting. A lot of our fellows, like even for the Institute for Nonpartisan Innovation, a lot of the fellows do that. A lot of times this is their first official, tech-related job, or sometimes their first job in general or internship in general. They go from, basically having very little to no technical real-world experience to being thrown in the midst of this fast-moving, really impactful operation that's working with huge partners and doing amazing things. And they leave brand new people, ready to do brand new things. Everybody who works with Vngle, short-term, long-term, is our goal as an organization to help you become your best self. So that comes with challenging you. It comes with making sure you're learning, helping just getting an understanding of who you are and where you need to be. Just being able to kind of guide those type of unique operations is really powerful, because it's just the amount of people you get to reach, the lives you can change in the process of the larger mission is cool. We're already working with multiple CUNY schools and actually coming to Baruch next. Yeah. There's a professor, Dr. Angie Beeman, over at the March School of Public and the International Affairs at Baruch.
Yep, that's the one I graduated from. I got a master's there. Yeah.
yeah. Dr. Beeman, she reached out. We had invited her to the launch of the Institute, but she couldn't make it, but she was still super interested in the work. We had a call, and she, invited us to come and, be a part of her class and stuff like that. So we're already starting to experiment and with Baruch and see what other opportunities we can bring there. So, all that to say is that we're just passionate people, and it's really great to see the impact that we can make.
I love that. Congrats on the connection, the Baruch connection for there. Yes. I do want to know about the internships and the people that you work for, because this is different, having a job versus owning a business and having to employ people and go through an interview process of kind of like creating the team that you want for your business. What type of struggles have you encountered with that? What type of people do you typically gravitate towards hiring? What skills do they have, qualities, all that good stuff?
Great question. Well, so for Vngle, everybody part of Vngle has to be mission-driven, impactful thinking people. That's just a common thread. You can't, if you're not thinking about what's going on in your community or in the world around us and how to better serve, it's going to be hard for you to be fully in sync with what we're doing, because what we're doing is so ingrained in serving community. When it comes to finding the right people, we're looking for people who take initiative, who are willing to do the hard work, but who are also sensitive to the needs of other people, have a heart posture towards impact, like I said before, and are willing to learn fast. When it comes to previous interns or so that maybe did not align with us, they pretty much always did not. They did the opposite of what I just listed. They either were not passionate, they were not impact focused, they were definitely not taking initiative. They're not willing to learn. We have, it's a whole world of information around us at our fingertips, and it's just like the majority of the time you could probably find your answer. But if you're not being proactive and you're thinking the world's going to come to you, then you don't understand how the world works. You're going to slow down this operation. So usually, we have to, do something about that and make sure no one slows down the operation. Sometimes we have to remove people, but that's just what you have to do to protect the culture of an organization, especially one that's focused on societal impact.
And being a business owner, you're also put in this role where you're almost like a mentor to these interns in a way. So as a mentor, what kind of advice would you give to them? I know you're probably going to say like take initiative, all the good stuff that you just mentioned already. But aside from that, if someone wanted to start a business or someone is looking to work in an industry or field that is kind of like community driven and focused, what advice would you give them?
I would say, first off, don't just jump into it. Really, really dive deep into understanding the problem and asking yourself, if you're willing to start a business, are you willing to solve, thoroughly and completely dedicate yourself to solving this problem, and not for the next year or two, but maybe the next 10 years, because it may take a very long time to get there. It will be a lot of unseen circumstances that will challenge you or disrupt your path or anything. And it's just are you going to be persistent enough to continue? I think that's the biggest thing, because it's easy to say you want to be a business owner. It's easy to start a business. All you got to do is just go fill out some paperwork and you technically have a business. But the question is, do you have the grit and the heart to stay in it through the ups and downs, especially if it's an impact-focused operation, especially if it's an operation that the world has not seen and is unfamiliar with? That's the hardest. That's definitely was the hard part for Vngle, is realizing that we're going to have to build something that the world has not quite experienced yet. You have to be willing to be misunderstood, and there's just a dedication to the mission that you have to have that supersedes perception and that supersedes momentary comfort, to be frank.
Wonderful. And where do you see Vngle going in the next 3 years, aside from the partnership with Baruch and other partnerships with CUNY? How do you envision Vngle growing?
Yeah, we're really excited about our new repositioning. Just to give context, for the last few years, we've described Vngle as a grassroots news operation. But now that we have repositioned ourselves as a Civic Insights operation, that has made our value a lot clearer to a lot of operations, a lot more people are excited about us, and a lot more people understand us. So that's creating the opportunity to allow us to grow a lot more easily to a lot more communities nationally. So that's really our goal over these next 3 years, is to really bring our civic infrastructure to more and more communities across America. Going into next year, which is 250th anniversary of America, we see that we have a great opportunity to help more and more partners kind of like get a better understanding on what's going on across key parts of the nation. We got some important national moments coming up next year as well, and in the years to come. So we really want to use this momentum to begin building more partners all across the country, and that's something that we're really focused on.
Quick question too. You mentioned that you were originally grassroots, and I remember that's how you came in for CUNY Clash, and you kind of changed the marketing to civic focused. Was that because you were feeling or you were being misunderstood a lot? So you kind of reframed how people can see you all? Was that it?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So, what I began to realize is, though, the idea of Vngle did start from a media and a news connotation, and that's really, at the heart of it, we still are a reporting operation. But what I began to realize is, one, and though we are grassroots power, these words that we use, people have different interpretations of. Like why I see the word grassroots as community organizing and just making, helping to support communities. Someone else may think of the word grassroots as protest. And that's the same, even more so for the word news. No one in America has the same idea of what news is anymore. So for me to be saying grassroots news, people are like, whoa, I don't even know if I want to talk to you. But in reality, we're not even a traditional news operation. We're helping to source information to help people just become clear that we're doing ourselves a disservice by sticking to the grassroots news, even though that might have been our origin, because it's hard to get a city leader or a university or anybody to understand that we can help them with real-time information if we're just saying news, So that was kind of the catalyst, and realizing that we may need to make a slight change, and it was a good change.
I love the pivot. So how can our followers, listeners, get involved with Vngle, support you, follow you on your journey?
Yeah, definitely follow us on social media. Most of our social media is Vngle Stories. So Vngle, VNGLE Stories, STORIES. But it may just be Vngle on some platforms like LinkedIn and stuff like that, or Vngle, the Civic Insights Company. But if you're in New York, definitely get involved with the Institute for Nonpartisan Innovation. We're starting to work on having monthly events all across the city. So like once those are getting going, please come join us. Like it's a really unique community that's growing. And from our first few events, it's clear that it's hard to find a nonpartisan focused innovation space in New York, where people aren't political, where people are just trying to talk about new ways to solve common problems. So, we really see I&I as being a backbone for that for the city of New York. And, if anyone's interested in civics or just like community impact or community innovation, want to explore how new technologies can impact communities, we definitely ask you to join us. And for, students or faculty across CUNY, definitely invite you just to really double as much. Eventually, we want the Institute, I&I, to connect with all 25 schools across CUNY. It's a large goal, but I think it's doable. There's enough impactful thinkers, and there's, I think CUNY system needs a interconnected system to kind of streamline civic innovation. So if you're listening to this and you're someone that's really passionate about civic innovation, reach out to us. Like maybe you could help bring I&I to your campus. Maybe we could create a fellowship for your school. And maybe we could help create projects to bring real-time information to certain faculty members at your school. So, the possibilities are are almost endless.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It was great speaking with you, Blake. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys flourish and be across all 25 CUNY campuses and other schools as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And, I appreciate you for your time and having me on.
And I won't lose my focus. Whoa, this I know it's in my soul.